Okay, so looks like we're diving into language learning plateaus today.
Yeah, those frustrating walls everyone seems to hit.
Right, like you're making progress, then bam.
It's a common experience, but luckily there are ways to get past them.
Oh, good, because I've definitely hit a few myself.
Well, let's start with one of the biggest hurdles, fear of making mistakes.
Oh, I know that one.
It can really hold you back.
Totally. I mean, who wants to sound like a fool?
Right, but here's the thing. Mistakes are actually crucial for learning.
Really? How so?
Well, when we make a mistake, our brains kind of freak out,
Uh,
but
oh,
in a good way. It triggers this process called synaptic plasticity.
synaptic what now?
It's basically like rewiring your brain to learn something new.
So every time I mess up, my brain's getting a workout.
Exactly, you're strengthening those connections.
So I shouldn't beat myself up about it.
Nope. Actually, try keeping a mistake journal.
A mistake journal.
Yeah. Write down your mistakes and the corrections.
Interesting.
It helps you see patterns and learn from them.
Okay, I can see that.
But I know even with that fear of making mistakes in front of others, that's tough.
Oh, yeah, like when you actually have to speak the language.
It's like stage fright, but with grammar.
Exactly.
Mm.
And sometimes those mistakes can be super embarrassing.
Oh, totally. I've been there, but remember, everyone feels that anxiety.
So how do you get over it?
Start small practice in low-pressure situations.
Like with a language partner or a tutor?
Exactly. Build fluency without the fear of judgment.
Makes sense.
And as you get more comfortable, you can gradually increase the challenge.
Okay, so what about motivation? I struggle with that.
Yeah, it's easy to start strong, then lose steam.
Tell me about it. I've abandoned so many language apps.
It happens, but remember, language learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
So no cramming.
Not ideal.
Okay.
The key is sustainability.
Okay. But how do you actually make language learning a habit
Well, one way is to set realistic goals.
instead of aiming for fluency in a month?
Right. Try mastering a few new words a day or having a short conversation.
Small steps.
Exactly. Those small wins keep you going.
I like that. You can also try habit stacking. Habit stacking. You take an existing habit like brushing your teeth. Right. And you add a language learning habit on top.
So, like, review flashcards while I brush.
Exactly. Makes it easier to stick with it.
Clever. But what about when it feels like too much information?
Yeah. Information overload. That's a big one.
It can be so overwhelming.
Definitely your brain can only handle so much at once.
So what do you do?
Prioritize. Focus on the most frequent words and phrases first.
Not the whole dictionary.
Right. And break it down into manageable chunks.
Okay, makes sense. But how do you actually remember everything?
Well, our brains are wired to forget,
That's comforting.
but we can use that to our advantage with spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition. Remind me.
You review information just as you're about to forget it.
Oh, right, like with those flashcard apps?
Exactly. Anki and Memrise are great for that.
Cool, I'll check those out.
It helps the information stick long term.
Awesome. But even with all that, sometimes I get stuck in self-doubt. Negative self-talk, that can be a killer.
It is. Like I see other people speaking fluently and just feel discouraged.
Comparing ourselves to others is a trap.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
But try to focus on your own progress.
Easier said than done.
I know, but try reframing those negative thoughts.
Instead of, I'm terrible.
Say, I'm learning and improving every day.
Okay, that actually sounds helpful.
It's about building yourself up, not tearing yourself down.
Right, and remembering everyone makes mistakes.
Absolutely, even native speakers.
So give yourself a break.
Exactly. Self-compassion is key.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Fear of mistakes, anxiety, motivation, information overload.
And negative self-talk. It's amazing how much psychology plays a role.
It is. Learning a language is as much mental as it is about memorization.
Exactly. And the more we understand our brains, the better we can learn.
Well, I'm already feeling more confident.
Good. And remember, you're not alone in this.
We've all been there.
And with the right mindset and strategies, you can achieve your goals.
Speaking of which, what about plateaus? Why do they happen?
That's a great question and something we'll delve into next time.
Okay, looking forward to it. So stay tuned. We'll be back to uncover more secrets of language learning.
So you hit a plateau and might be wondering why.
Yeah, like, is it just me?
No, not at all. It's not about hitting some learning limit.
Okay, good to know.
It's often because we need to switch things up as we go.
Switch things up. How so?
Well, think about it. You master the basics.
Right, grammar, vocabulary.
Exactly, the building blocks. But then you move past that. Things get more nuanced. The language gets tied into the culture.
So it's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Exactly. Those unspoken rules are turning the cultural context.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had some awkward moments with that.
We all have. It's those subtle cues that can trip you up.
Like body language or tone of voice.
Exactly. Things textbooks don't always teach you.
So how do you learn that stuff?
Immerse yourself in the culture alongside the language.
Okay, but how? It can't just be watching movies, right?
Right. It's got to be more intentional.
Okay, so what do you suggest?
Actively seek out opportunities to engage with the culture.
Like talk to native speakers online.
Yes. Or in person if you can.
Attend cultural events. Even try cooking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make it an adventure.
I like that. Turn learning into exploring.
It can really reignite that passion.
Oh yeah, for sure, when you see how it all connects.
Speaking of connecting, what about technology's role?
Oh man, it's a game changer.
It is. So many resources at our fingertips.
Apps, dictionaries, virtual reality even.
It's incredible. And it keeps evolving.
Yeah, but it can also be overwhelming.
Right. Too many options.
How do you choose?
Be a discerning consumer. Do your research. Try things out.
Like finding the right pair of shoes.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to mix and match.
Use an app for vocab. Then do a language exchange.
Precisely. Use tech strategically.
Not let it become a crutch.
Right. So what about different learning approaches?
Oh yeah, the classic debate.
Traditional versus immersive.
Drills and memorization or just jumping in.
Right. Some people swear by one or the other.
What do you think?
Both have their strengths.
So a blend is best.
Exactly. Combine the rigor with the real-world experience.
It's like building a house. You need both a foundation and the walls.
Great analogy. And we have so many tools now to do that.
That's true. It's never been easier to personalize learning.
Right. But amidst all the tools and strategies, don't forget
Forget what?
the simple joy of language learning.
Oh yeah, it's easy to get bogged down.
It is. We got to remember why we started.
Connecting with other cultures.
Discovering new ways of thinking.
And just the fun of it all.
Exactly. That sense of accomplishment keeps you going.
Especially when things get tough.
Right. So remember that joy.
It's fuel for the journey.
Now we've talked about external factors, but what about internal?
Internal, like what?
Mindset, our attitude towards learning.
Oh yeah, that makes a huge difference.
It does. Do we believe we can grow or that we're stuck?
Like fixed versus growth mindset.
Exactly. A growth mindset is crucial for language learning.
Because it helps you see challenges as opportunities.
Yes. And mistakes as feedback, not failures.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Absolutely. And that journey is rarely linear.
There will be ups and downs.
But with the right mindset, you can handle them.
So we've covered a lot of the psychology, cultural context, technology.
When mindset, it's all connected.
Before we move on to breaking through plateaus.
Right, let's give our listener a challenge.
Okay, what kind of challenge?
We've talked about a lot, but let's make it personal.
Okay, I like that.
Think back to a time you learned a new skill. Anything.
Like playing an instrument or even coding.
Exactly. What strategies helped you succeed?
And how can you apply those to language learning?
That's the challenge. Reflect on your own experience.
Because we all have that capacity to learn.
Yeah, just need to tap into it.
So take some time to think about that.
And in part 3, we'll dive into specific strategies for those plateaus.
Okay, so we've talked about the mental game, the cultural stuff, even tech.
And now it's time for action.
Yeah.
You've hit that plateau. Now what?
Right, how do you actually break through?
Well, first remember, plateaus aren't failures. They're signals
Signals for what?
that your methods need an upgrade.
Like leveling up in a video game.
Exactly. What worked before might not cut it now.
So what's the first upgrade?
Push past your comfort zone.
Okay, but how?
If you've been sticking to textbooks and apps,
Yeah, most of us start there.
it's time to dive into more authentic materials.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Novels, magazines, podcasts in your target language.
Oh, okay, so real world stuff.
Exactly. Even movies and TV shows can help.
Really? But what if I don't understand everything?
Don't worry about that at first. Just focus on the gist.
Like getting the main idea.
Right. You'll be surprised how much you absorb passively.
It's like learning your first language as a kid.
Exactly. You don't start with grammar rules, you just absorb.
And eventually it all clicks.
Speaking of clicking, another great tool is active recall.
Active recall. What's that?
Basically testing yourself.
Oh, so like flashcards and quizzes.
Yes, but you can go further. Try summarizing something you just heard.
Or writing a paragraph with new vocabulary.
Exactly. That struggle to remember makes it stick better.
Like a mental workout.
Right. And don't forget, spaced repetition.
Reviewing things just as you're about to forget.
Yes. Use those apps. We talked about Anki Memorize.
Got it. Keep those neural pathways firing.
Now we've talked about individual skills, but what about conversation?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, right? Actually speaking.
Exactly. And for that, you got to seek out opportunities.
To speak the language.
Right. If you're not living where it's spoken, you got to create them.
So language exchange partners, online groups,
Yes. Even trips abroad if you can.
immerse yourself as much as possible.
It's about putting yourself out there, embracing that productive struggle.
Productive struggle. I like that.
It's about pushing past your comfort zone.
And those conversations don't have to be perfect.
Nope. The goal is communication, connection, building confidence.
It's like learning to dance. You'll step on some toes at first,
But you keep practicing and it gets smoother.
and eventually you're gliding across the dance floor.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable, set new challenges.
Like what?
Give a presentation in the language. Write a blog post.
Wow, even start a podcast in the language.
Why not? It's about constantly pushing those boundaries.
Keeping things exciting.
And remember, language learning is a journey, not a destination.
It's like exploring a vast landscape, always something new to discover.
And those unexpected detours can lead to the best finds.
So to our listener who's feeling stuck, keep climbing.
Embrace those challenges.
Rediscover that joy of learning.
You're not alone on this journey.
We're all here to support each other.
Keep exploring, experimenting, pushing those boundaries.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll have this conversation in your target language.
That would be amazing. Until then, happy learning.
And that wraps up our deep dive into language learning plateaus.
We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic.
Until then, keep those brains buzzing and those tongues wagging.